Episode 11 of Prison School was pretty much freaking crazy because we have Hana here having a mental breakdown, and even though Kiyoshi definitely is right now getting lucky, he definitely must be scared out of his mind. But we see now that at the beginning of the episode, we have our guy thinking of a plan because right now they only had 1 day to clear their names, and they were banking on tricking the vice president once again. But we see that when we went to the underground student council, we have the vice president Mako actually being put on the back burner, and because Hana here, she was now going to be put in charge, and of course the vice president was like very much against that because obviously Hana, last week went crazy because she pretty much wanted to kill Kiyoshi because she had recalled what happened when they were in the nurse office. And so right now, we have the vice president, pretty much calling Hana out on that, saying that right now she is definitely, pretty much unstable. And then we have Hana here saying that, maybe these two are like working together, or maybe it's possible that, the vice president had possibly fallen for like maybe for Kiyoshi, because that right there is pretty much like the most decent out of all of them, to the underground student council, except for obviously, Hana, of course. And so now we see pretty much that the president, of course, it came down to her. And obviously, with like Hana going there, things were going to be, very, very different. And so now we see that when it was time for their lunch and it was time for the plan to finally put in motion, we see now that obviously at first it was going to be a fail because they were betting on challenging, Mako to a game of butt wrestling. And obviously, with like me and Hana, who bought in their food, she does not have that competitive spirit, like the vice president. And so when Four Eyes, actually tried to challenge her, she actually kicked him so hard in the butt. This guy went flying and he actually hit the wall. And you just see, this long line of blood as he, slid down. And that right there had to be so freaking painful. And so then we have all the guys getting their food. And when it was Kiyoshi's turn, we have Hana here, warning him that she obviously had recalled what happened in the nurse office, and of course, she would get some serious payback on him. And that right there was like pretty much, playing over and over at Kiyoshi's head, her words, because he was so worried what would happen to him, but not only that, what would happen to his mushroom, down there. And so now we see that that Chiyo, she is still helping them, and even though Kiyoshi does not want to get her involved in this, he pretty much has no choice because right now they only have a day left, and if they don't do it, by then they'll be kicked out. And so now we see that we have the vice president, working out in her room, and this girl is sweating buckets. This girl can sweat. And then we have the president coming in there as well, and we see now that the president, she actually had this handkerchief, and she was trying to clean some of the sweat off Mako, but this girl, was sweating so much, she pretty much ruined that handkerchief. But we do learn that the president, she does not doubt or distrust Mako at all, but the only reason why she sent Hana in her place, it was because she thought that the boys were maybe picking up on her, or picking up on her behavioral pattern. And that right there was true because these guys were betting on, Mako's competitive instinct to kick in, and that right there would, distract her as they, as Four Eyes here has snuck out to go to the office and look for, some kind of clue that will clear their name. And so obviously, when that didn't work, they now have to come up with some other plan. But we see that the president, she is not giving up at all, and we actually have her giving Mako here another kind of job that we didn't see what it was till later on. And so now as the day went on and they were done, with their lunch, we learned how Chiyo was always getting these notes from Kiyoshi because before we never saw how she got them. We only saw her reading them, but we learned that whenever a student here would like bring out those empty trays to take to the kitchen, Chiyo would like pop out of nowhere and get them, to take them back herself. And we see that like this time when she like read the note, she actually got caught, but luckily it was by an ally, and that right there was Anzu. So I'm definitely glad that like Anzu is now trying to like redeem herself, because it definitely was her fault as to why they are getting kicked out in the first place, because she had caused, what's the name, Chingo to come back later than the time he was given, and that right there is the reason why they got their third strike. And so now with like these two right together, you would think that maybe their plan could go off without a hitch, but we see now that the president, she was like so worried that these guys were like planning something, that she actually had the vice president to wear this like skin tight outfit. And I will say that I was like definitely shocked that we did not see this outfit pop open, because they actually contain her like massive tits. But I will say that maybe it was an angle thing, but I will say that while she was doing her push-ups, her tits looked so much bigger than when she was actually sitting up talking to the president, in her room. But now we have Mako here, walking the grounds late at night to make sure that he got plan will fail. And we have Chiyo who's also sneaking around as well. But we see that for their plan to actually work, they actually have to get into the correction office. And so right now their plan was to actually injure one of these guys and get them some medical attention. And so now we see that Four Eyes, he actually wanted Kyoshi to like stab him in the forehead with his fork, because that right there, would like give him an injury that would require medical attention. And we see at first Kyoshi was like very hesitant, and then we have Four Eyes, embracing himself. But just when he had like lowered his guard, that's when Kyoshi had did that. And of course, Kyoshi being a good guy, there was no way he could do it, for a full-heartedly, I guess, because, there was no blood. But then when like Shingo had called for Eyes and did it instantly, that right there looks so freaking painful. And because we see blood going everywhere, and then we have Hana, coming back to see what was going on. And of course, Hana here did not care, because when Four Eyes had ran up and told her that like he was bleeding, she actually kicked him away. And Hana is definitely, very cold-hearted, because she would say, just throw some bit on it and it'll heal. And so right now, obviously, right now definitely wasn't looking good. But before I see it being smart, because he had recalled what Kyoshi said earlier about Hana bearing a deep grudge against him, and they could possibly, use that to their advantage. And so now we see that right there, actually worked, because, right now we have Four Eyes going off, and he was like questioning Kyoshi, what happened between them. And so we see that to actually, shut him up, Hana came back and got them. And so now we see that, after Four Eyes here got treated for that wound, he had went back to the prison, but Hana here actually locked Kyoshi out on the outside, and we see her now taking him back, to the office, so that way, she could like question him. And so of course now she was like wondering if Kyoshi, told anybody, what happened. And obviously he would not do that, because he even said that like he would not tell nobody, to protect her honor. And so now we see that it was probably time for Hana, to get started on her revenge. And what she did was she had cut the bottom out. No, she had cut the top of a bottle, and she actually wanted Kyoshi to pee in it. And so now we see at first, obviously Kyoshi would not do that, but when he realized that what he had to do, for the plan to work, he had no choice. And we see him now boldly taking off his pants and then like boxers as well. And obviously, they would not show everything, but that right there actually caught Hana off guard. And to make things worse, he actually wanted her to like hold the bottle for him. So right now, obviously Hana, was definitely feeling, rather vulnerable. But we see that right there did not last for long, as Hana here actually took off her skirt and her panties as well. And to be honest, I definitely was not expecting that. And so right now, these two, they were like having a one-on-one and a mental battle to actually see who would like break first. And we see that Kyoshi here, he was like definitely getting an edge, as they actually had the bottle, right where his mushrooms, so to say, were. And so we see eventually he actually backed Hana up to the door, and that right there allowed him to unlock it, so that way Chiyo, I guess, could get in there and get what they needed to actually prove that the guy was like set up. But we see that after Hana here had needed right in the gut and causing a fall, and he looks up, that right there is where he sees her Medusa, and I was like dying when they showed that. To me, that right there was like freaking hilarious. And not only that, he actually made a reference about turning a stone, but the thing that was like becoming stone was his mushroom, and it became stiff, and that right there actually held the bottle up, and I freaking lost it. And then we have Hana here telling it, or calling him a creep, a pervert, and all this time, and I'm pretty sure that he saw her Medusa like a total of 3 times. And I'm surprised that the Hana did not kill him after the first time he saw that. But now we see that, just when Hana here was like going to get her revenge, because even though right now he was stiff, she was still going to pee on him, to get back at, at what he did, to her. But then we see that Mako, she actually caught someone, and everybody thought that maybe she had caught Chiyo, because obviously she was the one that the guys was like getting help from. But when they all heard her voice, Shingo here was the one to realize that it was like actually Anzu. And I do wonder if the vice president knew that was Anzu or not, because obviously Anzu is kind of like in their inner circle, or at least close to it. And so I do wonder if maybe Anzu can find some way to actually get out of trouble with them. But at least now Chiyo is safe. And then we have Mako almost going in there to where Hana and Kyoshi was, but obviously it would be very bad for her. It would be very bad for her to see them like that, because right now both of them are pantsless and underwearless. And so right now Hana here quickly locked the door. And when she got Mako to leave, she was like she was going to actually continue on getting her revenge on Kyoshi. But obviously she could not go. She could not go through with that, and that right there is where she had her breakdown, because all this bad stuff happened to her, but nothing happened to him. Like she had got peed on. What else? What happened to her? Like at first he had sore pain, then she got peed on, and last but not least, he had defiled her Medusa, and that right there, caused her to like break down a bit. But obviously she had, regained her composure, because Kyoshi was like, if it, makes you feel any better, you can hit me. And she was like wailing on him. I thought that, he might die, but it was hilarious how quick he like got her to stop. That right there to me definitely had me cracking up when I watched that. But now we see that Hana's true revenge, it would be by taking, what Kyoshi, wouldn't want her to. And she actually stole his like first kiss, because she asked Kyoshi if there was like someone he liked, and obviously there is, who is Chiyo. And so right now Hana was like bragging, saying that I stole your first kiss and ruined it. And Kyoshi was like, how do you know that I never kissed anyone, because all you asked me was like about liking someone. And so Hana here definitely, had a good point about that. and we see her, once again, kissing him, and that right there is for the episode in it, as we have Chiyo still making her way toward the office. So I do wonder if maybe Chiyo will catch them, because that right there could be the final straw that like sinks the Kiyoshi X Chiyo chip. And so I do wonder, next week just what will happen, because next week is episode 12, and right now they only have 12 hours left to like clear their names, and so I do wonder if maybe that right there was like done on purpose, or was it purely coincidental. But obviously, I'm definitely looking forward to see what happens next. I do want to test how far Hana might go, because right now she is definitely not in her right mindset. But overall, a pretty good, enjoyable episode. That ending set up for a very, very interesting finale next week. But of course, I will let you guys thoughts on this, and please do not forget to like and subscribe, because it really helps me out. But as always, you guys take it easy, and I will see you all next time.